The flight was supposed to be routine, just another red-eye across the ocean. Passengers boarded with tired eyes, sipping their coffees and settling into their seats. The crew moved efficiently, calm and confident. Everything was normal. Until the pilot collapsed mid-flight. Panic spread quickly through the cabin. A flight attendant rushed to the cockpit, only to find the captain unconscious, slumped over the controls. The co-pilot, stunned and alone, tried to keep control. Alarms were going off. The plane started to dip. And just when things couldn't get worse, a calm but unfamiliar voice came from behind him. "I've got this," she said. No one knew who she was. A passenger. A crew member in disguise. The co-pilot turned, ready to push back, till he saw her face. His blood ran cold. She had vanished 7 years ago. Gone without a trace. A national search had turned up nothing. Her name was whispered in podcasts and news headlines. Some called it a tragedy, others a mystery. But here she was, alive, in a pilot's uniform, stepping into the cockpit like she'd never left. Who was she? Where had she been all these years? And how did she know exactly what to do when the plane was on the brink of disaster? Passengers held their breath as the woman took the controls, her eyes locked forward. But the question still hung in the air, unspoken, but thick with weight. Why now? Why here? And most of all, how did she end up on this flight? This is not just a story about a missing woman. It's about secrets buried deep and a truth that refused to stay hidden. Because when the plane touched down hours later, nothing would ever be the same again. But before we get there, you need to know what really happened 7 years ago, and why her sudden return is more dangerous than anyone realizes. 7 years ago, her name was everywhere Captain Alina Reyes. She was one of the youngest female pilots to lead international flights. Confident, skilled, and admired by her crew, she had a spotless record and a future that seemed unstoppable. Then, on a flight from Athens to New York, everything changed. The aircraft disappeared from radar without a single distress call. Search teams scoured the ocean for weeks. Debris was found, but no bodies, no answers. Just questions and theories. Some believed the plane crashed and sank deep into the sea. Others whispered darker possibilities: sabotage, a hijacking, even government cover-ups. But with no solid evidence, the case eventually faded from the news cycle, becoming just another unsolved aviation mystery. Her family grieved. Her colleagues moved on. And Captain Reyes, she was gone, presumed dead until now. What made her sudden reappearance so chilling wasn't just that she was alive, it was that she looked exactly the same. Not older, not changed. It was as if time had frozen for her while the rest of the world kept turning. She had no ID, no luggage, and no explanation. Just her old flight uniform, clean-pressed, untouched by years. Some of the crew recognized her. A few passengers had seen her in old news reports. But no one knew what to say. Who do you become after being gone for so long? And why come back like this on a flight where the captain collapses midair? Was it just coincidence? Or something else? Even stranger, the plane's systems recorded a sudden but brief blackout right before the pilot lost consciousness. No tech malfunction. No warning. Just darkness. Then her. And while everyone focused on how she landed the plane, no one noticed the message she left behind, tucked quietly in the cockpit's logbook. A message no one was meant to see as the strange transmissions continued. The circle of people who knew the truth started to shrink. One of the flight attendants from the recent flight Jessobe began noticing unusual things. Her phone battery drained overnight, even when turned off. She received silent calls at 3:07 a.m. every morning for a week straight. And twice, she spotted the same man from the photo, the one with the unaging face standing outside her apartment building, never moving, just watching. Meanwhile, Theo was working around the clock, digging through declassified files and old aviation data. One document, buried in a Cold War-era archive, described an experimental aircraft that was said to phase between known radar frequencies, slipping between blips like a ghost in the sky. The last note on the project was chilling. Pilots reported altered perception of time and location. Final test flight never returned. The test date: exactly 7 years before Alina disappeared at the same time. Another subplot was unfolding behind the scenes, one involving Alina's younger brother, Marco, who had become a commercial pilot himself after her disappearance. He'd spent years flying over the same routes, hoping for any trace of her. Now suddenly, his name was flagged for unexpected travel behavior by airport security. Surveillance showed him entering restricted areas doors that should have been locked. But when questioned, Marco claimed he didn't remember doing any of it. Passengers from Alina's return flight started sharing details with each other in an anonymous online thread. Most described strange dreams since landing nearly identical ones. They were walking through a quiet, endless airport with no exits. Just static over the intercom and flight announcements in a language no one recognized. And always, in the corner of their vision, a woman in uniform walking ahead, never turning around. Tensions reached a boiling point when one of the passengers vanished days after speaking out publicly. No signs of a break-in. No packed bags. Just a half-written note on their desk. It's not about where she went. It's about where she took them. Now it was clear the mystery wasn't only about how Alina came back, but what followed her when she did. The logbook message was short, just a few lines, but it sent chills through the technician who found it during routine checks. He wasn't even supposed to read it. But curiosity got the better of him. They were never gone. They're watching the skies. I wasn't supposed to come back. He didn't report it right away. Who would believe him? But he couldn't shake the feeling that this flight was more than an emergency, was a warning. Meanwhile, Captain Alina Reyes had vanished again. After landing the plane flawlessly and briefly exchanging words with airport officials, she was escorted into a private room for debriefing. But within the hour, she disappeared, no exit logs, no camera footage, nothing. Just like before. Gone again. The passengers were kept quiet. News outlets were told it was a medical situation, and the official report made no mention of the mystery woman in the cockpit. But inside the aviation world, whispers started to spread. Pilots talked. Crew members exchanged messages in private forums. Some claimed they had seen strange radar blips during their own flights, brief flashes of an unknown aircraft, flying at impossible altitudes, vanishing before anyone could make contact. And now, with Rhea's return, old flight data was being pulled and reanalyzed. One former investigator, Theo Marlin, who had worked on the original missing flight, got a call in the middle of the night. No name, just coordinates and a timestamp. When he arrived at the location, an abandoned airstrip in Alaska, he found a weathered flight recorder wrapped in cloth, half frozen in the snow. The tag on it read, Flight 207A, recovered. The same flight Reyes was last seen piloting, but there was no record of any recovery. Back in a locked hangar near the city, someone had reassembled parts of a wrecked cockpit, not for display, but for study. The wiring was fused in odd ways, with symbols etched inside the panels ones no airline had ever used, and next to it, a series of pilot logs, all dated years after Flight 207A disappeared, all signed by Alina Reyes. And then, late one night, a new transmission came through an old emergency channel, one that hadn't been active in years. A calm, steady voice whispered, "They know I broke the pattern. And now? They're coming back." The voice on the emergency channel cut off just as suddenly as it began. Static filled the airwaves for a few seconds, and then nothing. But that single message sent the control center into silent chaos. Technicians checked the logs. That frequency had been dormant for over a decade, long sealed off after Flight 207A was declared lost. No one had access to it. No one should have Theo Marlin sat in a dimly lit hotel room staring at the waveform recording. He ran it through 3 filters, trying to confirm the voice. Every analysis pointed to the same result. It was Alina Reyes. But what haunted him more than the voice was the final line. They're coming back. Who was they? And why now? Just when he thought it couldn't go deeper, Theo received a coded email with an old photo attachment, one that had never been released to the public. It showed the crew of Flight 207A taken the day before the plane disappeared. But one face was circled. Not Alina. A man in the background, knee-listed on the manifest. No uniform, no badge. Just standing behind them, staring directly at the camera, Theo ran facial recognition. No matches. But the same man appeared in a security feed from the airport this week, watching the passengers of the recent flight that Alina had landed. Same face, same stare. No aging. As if he hadn't changed at all in 7 years at the same time. Strange atmospheric readings were reported near the path of Flight 207A's last known location. A research team studying magnetic fields picked up unexplained pulses, short bursts, rhythmic, almost like code. When one scientist tried to decode it, she found something chilling. The pattern matched the Morse code for one word: return. And then passengers from the recent flight began receiving messages. No sender, no trace. Just one line. You were there. You saw it. Now you can't leave. It was no low.